Reverend Joseph Hesselgrave Thompson was vicar at St Peter's for 33 years, until he died on April the 18th, 1889. As one of the older residents of Cradley said after his death,
"Oh, you mean old Tommy Two Sticks, do ya? Oh, he was a bit of a funny un, he were."
Unconventional and blunt, during this time his congregation dwindled to 100, out of a population of nearly 5,000. His frequent trips around the British Isles and abroad, collecting botanical specimens, along with his travels in Europe as a missionary for his faith, were not appreciated by many of his flock. It was said of this extraordinary person that he emptied the church and filled the chapels, of which there were quite a number in the parish. But Reverend Thompson was nevertheless popular with the poor people of Cradley, who enjoyed that he was quick to criticise the wealthier members of his congregation when he thought they deserved it. The son of a Yorkshire businessman, Joseph Thompson acted as a tutor for several years in Lincolnshire before studying at Oxford University and graduating in 1845. He was already 35 years old when he was ordained at Worcester in 1846. He was then a curate for 10 years, first at St Nicholas Church, Worcester, and later in Halesowen, before his eventual arrival at Cradley Chapel, as St Peter's was known in 1856. At that time, it was not unusual for more than one family living in Cradley to share a single house. His vicar's notebooks contained invaluable information on the 1,162 families living in the 761 houses he visited when he first came to the village, and then again 6 years later, including church attendance, education, family relationships, and the difficult conditions that ordinary working people endured. He wrote of one family living at Ash Bank near Lodge Forge that Cornelius Homer, aged 7, made nails in the backyard nail shop and had to stand on bricks so that he could reach the anvil. The notebooks show this was commonplace, with children of a similar age making chain throughout the village. He was popular with young children, and Phoebe Starling, aged 3, was happy because she thought she was going to marry him. However, not everyone welcomed his visits. One woman told him that all her family served the devil. We can only guess from his notes on drunkenness, wife-beating, and immoral behaviour that some of his flock must have been left feeling very uncomfortable after a visit from the vicar. A great believer in the importance of education, when he first arrived in Cradley, the vicar ran a night school, which was popular with girls who worked as nailers by day before becoming more widely involved in the promotion of adult education. He was known as Tommy Two Sticks, some say because of his long, thin legs, and others because he used 2 walking sticks following an accident. Reverend Thompson would often inspect the hands of boys lined up against the church wall before school. If the hands were held out dirty, he would hit them with one of his sticks. But those boys whose hands and shoes were clean were bought after-school knobs of toffee, known as gobstoppers, at old Mother Robbie's shop. Reverend Thompson's sermons and behaviour during church services clearly showed he had a sense of humour and was no respecter of persons. Whatever their rank in life, those in his congregation were expected to join in the singing and make the correct responses in the right places. If he thought anyone wasn't doing this, he would walk around the church with a hand to his ear, listening attentively. What his poorer parishioners liked about the old parson was that he always went for the toffs. False hair, false eyebrows, rouged cheeks, or conspicuous dress immediately attracted his attention, either inside or outside of church. If any member of the congregation fell short of his standards, he deliberately pointed at the pew they were in and made it quite clear whom he was reprimanding. On one occasion, he complained about the large amount of small change in the collection. Looking pointedly at a particular pew, he said,
"Of course, we don't expect even a threepenny bit from those of you who are worth less than nothing by £5,000.
The occupant of that particular pew had just been made a bankrupt. Liabilities £5,000, assets nil. Whether kicking a hassock that was in his way down the pulpit steps before continuing his sermon, or shaking a fist at anyone who dared to make too much noise in church, the Reverend Thompson was never afraid of shocking his parishioners. The eccentric bachelor lodged at several addresses during his time in Cradley and would not agree to a vicarage being built. Perhaps he thought it would be a waste of money. He was frequently away from his parish, travelling extensively in Britain and throughout Europe to Prussia, Austria, Switzerland, Italy, Spain, Portugal and France. The majority of this time was spent in search of botanical specimens. During his life, Joseph Thompson collected a huge number of specimens, of which at least 1,000 are contained in the Hull University Herbarium. He must have been physically robust and a skilled mountaineer, as the labels on many samples show that they came from mountain tops. In Switzerland, he was part of a group which, with a guide, made an ascent over an alpine pass. Roped together for safety, they passed over a glacier, reaching 11,000 feet before spending the night on the mountain. During 1861, Reverend Thompson spent a total of 6 months abroad, and an advertisement appeared the following year in the Brierley Hill Advertiser, complaining about yet another long absence and expressing deep concern as to when he would return. One of the motives for his foreign travel appears to have been to spread the Thompson version of Christianity. He preached the Protestant message in France and in Spain, and was not embarrassed by the hostile response that it sometimes provoked. At one time in Spain, he had to be rescued from an angry crowd by the mayor of Seville. Trying to convert Catholics in their cathedral precincts was not a good idea. After visiting Palestine, Reverend Thompson brought back some water from the River Jordan that he mixed with ordinary water and used for baptisms. The next time the wandering vicar went on his travels, the curate, Thomas Gregg, couldn't find any suitable lodgings, but as it was summertime, slept in the vestry. Waking up hot and thirsty in the night, the curate drank the holy water, which had been left there in a bottle. When the verger realised what had happened, he dreaded the unpredictable vicar's return and feared what his reaction might be. However, in February 1867, Reverend Thompson made a public presentation to show his appreciation for his curate's work. He said that after 5 or 6 weeks away on the continent, he had been astonished to find that when he returned, the congregation had increased to such an extent that more seating had to be taken into the church. A sure sign that it was Reverend Thompson who was emptying the church and filling the chapels. In spite of his eccentricity in and out of the pulpit, the poor had a real regard for him, and he for them, although many may not have attended his church. The less well-off people of Cradley preferred the chapels, which had concerts, outings and debates, and regarded church as something for the better-off middle classes. After an explosion at Homer Hill Colliery, he had to be stopped by officials from putting himself in danger by going down the shaft to comfort badly injured miners. The vicar was extremely proud to find in Cradley a rare plant that usually only grows on wasteland near the sea. Its common name is stinking goosefoot. A member of the Chenopodium family, stinking goosefoot is greyish and unattractive, and it has a disgusting smell of rotting fish. What a shame, this rare plant is something that most people would prefer not to have around. Nevertheless, Reverend Thompson seized the opportunity in August 1870 to give a talk on his find to the Worcestershire and Malvern Field Botanical Clubs and produced a small specimen for his fellow enthusiasts to enjoy. What a treat! Despite the growing objections of parishioners, Joseph Thompson doggedly continued his travels at home and abroad, seemingly unaware of the consequences for his church. Robust as ever, the vicar spent 4 weeks in the Pyrenees in the summer of 1888, searching for more botanical specimens. 6 months later, just 3 days short of his 78th birthday, he died in his lodgings one morning, very suddenly. Tommy Two Sticks chose to be buried not in the church itself, which was usual and would have been expected, but in the churchyard amongst his parishioners.